Great. So we're going to, please come on in and join us. We're going to get started with our afternoon company presentations. It's my pleasure to introduce my good friend, Dr. Robin Smith, who's the chairman and CEO of NeoStem.
Great. Well, welcome. So NeoStem is a public company. We're listed on NASDAQ, so I'd urge anyone who's making an investment to read our forward-looking statement and our filings, as many things can influence the business. So NeoStem is focused on regenerative medicine, making cell therapy products both for ourselves as well as for clients and other companies in the industry. We were founded in 2006, and since that time, we've done 5 acquisitions, 1 divestiture, and we believe have put together some of the key assets to lead the field. We have a pipeline of cell therapy products with different technology platforms, as well as a contract manufacturing business which serves many clients and companies who are developing cell therapy products, both autologous and allogeneic, many different cell types, and really is one of the leaders in the industry of turning cells into products. We have headquarters in New York. We have East Coast and West Coast facilities of GMP manufacturing facilities for our contract manufacturing business, and we have over $45 million in the bank, which is enough to get us to some of our clinical milestones we'll share with you over the next 12 minutes. So when you think of NeoStem, think of us as a contract manufacturing business that has expertise, both regulatory, in development and manufacturing of cell therapy products that we do for our own internal development as well as for clients, allowing for efficient and cost-effective manufacturing. And we're focused on developing cell therapy products in areas of chronic unmet medical need, in autoimmune disorders, ischemic repair areas, in cardiovascular disease, and tissue regeneration. So looking at our pipeline of therapeutics, we have multiple platforms. One is our ischemic repair platform, our Cd34 cells that you heard a little bit about this morning in Ted's cardiology panel from Dr. Pecora, as well as immune modulation, which is our T-cell program, and our tissue regeneration program, which is based on V cells. So our ischemic repair is the most mature of our products that we'll talk a little bit about, and we're completing and waiting for data now after completing enrollment in our phase 2 trial. And then we'll be entering other areas like congestive heart failure and possibly traumatic brain injury. Hopefully we'll have some exciting preclinical results looking at using these cells for tissue repair in the brain after an injury. In the immune modulation, we're focused on areas such as type 1 diabetes, steroid-resistant asthma to begin with, but we believe these T regulatory cells can be used for autoimmune disorders which affect over 50 million people in the United States. And our tissue regeneration program, our V cells, which were licensed from University of Louisville, continue to grow with dollars from the Department of Defense, SBIR grants, NIH funds, to look at using these cells to repair tissue. And so we're excited about where this research is, especially moving into small areas like macular degeneration, small wounds like scleroderma from our announcement this morning. And we hope that we'll find more information about these cells that will allow us to go into the clinic sometime next year. So just to begin to talk a little bit more about our Cd34 program, which we're really excited about. It leverages off of the body's natural repair mechanism. And as we heard this morning in the cardiology panel, is how do we get cells, repair cells that we naturally have, to the areas that they're needed to do something. So the idea is that 1 in 5 people will die within a year after a heart attack if they're over the age of 45. And naturally, after a person gets stented or has bypass, many people get better, but there's about 15 to 20% of the population that doesn't get better. And actually, at 6 months and even to a year, their heart muscle will get worse. The size of the infarct will get greater, and they'll have repeat heart attacks, congestive heart failure, and premature death. So the idea is to take stem cells from their bone marrow, isolate out these CD34 CXCR4 cells, and deliver them with a threshold dose to the heart through the infarct-related artery, not injecting them into the heart muscle, but just through the infarct-related artery between day 5 and 10. And we were encouraged by our phase 1 results on 31 patients, where we found that if a patient received 10 million cells or more, they had an improvement in perfusion, a decrease in the infarct size, and not one single patient had a decrease in their ejection fraction at 6 months, whereas there was a 30% and a 40% decrease in ejection fraction for patients who only received control or 5 million cells. So we started our phase 2 trial. We started to enroll in 2012. We completed in December. It was a double-blinded randomized control study with 60 sites, 160 patients, and we are measuring perfusion as the primary endpoint, and then multiple measures of function as secondary endpoints. And so we should have the last patient data, 6-month data, in June of this year, and then we'll close the data set in the second half of this year. We should be able to have data that we're all very excited about. And the idea is from the phase 1 studies and this notion of threshold dose that you need 10 million cells or more. So the treatment group received 10 million cells and the control group received media. So we talked a little bit this morning. We heard people talking about the importance of intellectual property, and we believe we have a very strong IP portfolio, not just for cardiovascular disease, but for all areas of vascular insufficiency. It includes both method and composition of matter. We have over 10 patents granted and over 12 other patents that are in the process of getting through approval. We were approved in Japan and in Europe, and we have really expanded this, not just for cardiovascular disease, but all areas of vascular insufficiency. And we agree that it's really important to have intellectual property to protect these technologies as you continue to advance them in the clinical development. So exciting features and benefits that we think are important is that these are your own cells. They're autologous. It's amplifying the natural body's repair mechanism. We're not expanding the cells, so you don't have to amplify them. You just purify them and put them where they're needed. And the delivery is intracoronary, not intramuscular, so you don't have to inject into the heart, which means you're not limited by a NOGA mapping system. All you need is an angiocath suite. So we believe that these are some of the benefits of our approach, and look forward to the second half of this year for data. We also feel that this technology, the AMR01, can be used for additional indications, the Cd34 repair cells for things like congestive heart failure. We are very encouraged by a paper that was done in Slovenia where 110 patients were treated, and they showed 5-year event-free survival by injecting these cells into the coronary arteries of the patients, not intramyocardially. So we thought this was a very exciting approach to be able to treat people with congestive heart failure, which is a much greater market. Over 22 million people have congestive heart failure. We also are hopeful that we'll be able to use these cells for traumatic brain injury, and we're doing some preclinical work now to see if that will be a possibility to take these cells and start clinical program to see if we can use this for traumatic brain injury. Over 1.7 million people have traumatic brain injury, and this would be something we would partner with. So our second platform technology is our Treg program. This isn't stem cells, these are T cells. So what happens is over 50 million people in the United States have autoimmune disorders, and their T effector cells become imbalanced with their T regulatory cells. And the T effector cells, which are important to get rid of foreign antigens and viruses and things that are not good for our body, become more. They outweigh the T regulatory cells, and they start to attack our own tissue, good tissue that we need. And so the idea is that if you take a person's T regulatory cells, expand them, and inject them back in, you can help rebalance a person's immune system and attenuate the autoimmune attack. Our technology really started with Becton Dickinson, who took the technology, the IP, around how you isolate, expand, and give back these cells for therapies, and they own a piece of our subsidiary, and now we're moving these through into clinical development. And we fast-tracked our development by partnering with UCSF and Jeff Bluestone, who has done a lot of work on type 1 diabetes. And using his CMC section, we believe we can go into other clinical indications that we'll talk about. Again, very strong IP. We have 22 issued patents covering both the isolation, activation, expansion, and methods of treating people using these T regulatory cells. So a group in Poland did some work which was very interesting. They looked at kids with type 1 onset diabetes. They treated them in the honeymoon period. And what they found is that there was a few patients were off of insulin. Others had a decrease in the amount of exogenous insulin needed. And pretty much everybody had an improvement or stabilization of their C-peptide, which is a measure of their ability to make insulin. So this was pretty dramatic results. And now this is being done in UCSF with Jeff Bluestone. So this was really important. So he took some of the data and is working on a little bit of an older population and has had really very exciting results. It's an open-blinded study, and he's going to be presenting this at the American Diabetes Association. But we're excited about it because having this relationship will allow us to go right into a phase 2 trial this summer to look at using these Treg cells for treating type 1 diabetes. And we picked these two markets to start with because type 1 diabetes, while not necessarily as large of a market as type 2, there really is an unmet medical need. And over 34 million people have type 1 diabetes. And actually, that's 1 in 300 children. It's the leading cause of kidney failure, blindness, and amputation of lower legs. So the sequelae of the disease is really terrible. So if you could take a person's T cells, expand them, and give them back intravenously, and reset that immune system to have their bodies continue to have the ability to make its own insulin, this really could be dramatic on how type 1 diabetes is treated in the future. So we're really excited about some of the early data that we've seen and Jeff Bluestone's data that will be announced in June of 2014. We also believe asthma is another area where there's a real unmet medical need. Over 25 million people have asthma in the United States, over 300 worldwide. And it's expensive to treat these patients who continue to come back into the hospital. It's really terrible to watch them gasp for air. And over 50% of 5% of that population account for most of the cost, over 50% of the cost. So really, this area of individuals who become resistant to steroids as a treatment are the individuals that we'll be focusing on. And so this will be a great area to see if we can take the T regulatory cells of the patient, give it back to them, and see if we can rebalance their immune system. And there's some early evidence to show that there's a decrease in their T regulatory cells in the sputum of these individuals. So we'll be starting a trial, a proof of concept trial this year in asthma. So on our clinical milestone pipeline, you can see we have 2 big inflection points for data this year. In June for the phase 1 study from Dr. Bluestone for type 1 diabetes, and the phase 2 study that we've done in our Cd34 repair technology, AMR01, and that will be the second half of the year. And we'll be starting a congestive heart failure trial for the Cd34 and the steroid-resistant asthma trial this year as well. So it'll be a busy year for us. And then lastly, our V-cell technology. While early in preclinical stages, we're very excited about these cells which have multi-lineage potential that can become part of different cells of different organs to repair tissue. And the idea is that these cells are in you, they're autologous cells, and by taking them and putting them to areas where they could repair the tissue, we potentially could develop a therapy for something like macular degeneration, retinal injuries, wounds that are non-healing, as well as bony defects. So we're looking to move this technology forward, and hopefully we'll have some exciting results that we'll see from some of our preclinical work with Scapin's Institute at Harvard for macular degeneration and scleroderma with Dr. Falanga. And we're able to do all of this because of our contract manufacturing business, which continues to grow and really focus on the industry, looking for innovation and engineering tools to keep quality at its height, to lower cost of goods, and really prepare people for commercial manufacturing. It benefits the industry and it benefits ourselves because there's multiple clients, including ourselves, that pay for that infrastructure. Progenitor Cell Therapy has been in business for 15 years, has worked with over 100 clients, and has successfully completed over 50 EU and US regulatory filings, has taken a company through all phases of clinical development through BLA, which is Dendrion's Prevenge, and really is one of the leaders in manufacturing in the space, and will continue to grow and expand internationally. So really, we have an exciting pipeline of technologies. We have a great contract manufacturing business, but it really is all about the people and our ability to develop and these technologies and really grow the company. And we've had a couple of individuals join our team lately. David Aldrak, who ran regulatory at Merck for 15 years. Stephen Potter, who was at Genzyme, who did the deal with Osiris, who joined our management team. Rob Dickey, who's been in the finance world in biotech for the last 15 years, has joined, and Dr. Douglas Lasorda, who's one of the founders of the Cd34 cells, who couldn't be here today. So it really is a great group, and we have a lot to accomplish in this year. We're happy to say that we do have over $45 million in the bank, which will allow us to hit some of the strategic milestones. And we're always looking for ways to add to our pipeline, either strategic transactions, M&A transactions that we may find, and really ways to partner so that we can get as many of these cell therapy products in the clinical development as quickly as possible and get them into the clinic and into commercialization. So with that, thank you.